listening to Philly Who, the podcast that tells the stories of the doers, thinkers, and performers of Philadelphia. I'm your host, Kevin Schmidlin, and today I'm talking with Miguel Dalmau. Miguel is a comedian who has appeared on TruTV, BET, and MTV, and his album can often be heard on XM satellite radio. He also has his own podcast called American Immigrant, where he interviews immigrants like himself who've come to America to pursue their dreams. In this episode, Miguel will share his story growing up in America after being rescued from abuse and poverty from the Dominican Republic by his mother and grandmother.
My grandma had to steal the passports from my dad's safe the night before and do all this crazy stuff when he was drunk just to get us out of there and stuff. It was a complete heist that these women in my life put together to get me out of there.
You'll hear how his immigration status left him ineligible for college scholarships and how that led him to pursue a career in comedy.
I had a girlfriend at the time, and what happened when I tried to go to get my scholarship and try to get grants and try to get whatever, they're like, you have no status, dude. I'm telling her my situation, and I'm making her laugh. And she's like, oh, you're so funny. You should be like a comedian. And I go, I should, right?
And we'll talk about how, despite the fact that Miguel found early success in the New York comedy scene, he's fallen in love with the comedy community here in Philadelphia.
I was so consumed with figuring out how to make it in comedy in New York. And then Philly became this perfect blend of just be yourself, but we also have opportunities out here. So I got to do comedy the way I wanted.
All this and more about Miguel Dalmau, his immigration story, and the Philly comedy scene right now on Philly Who. I'm your host, Kevin Schmidlin. Stay tuned. Just a heads up, there is a decent amount of cursing in this episode. Also, stay tuned at the end of this episode for a clip of Miguel's stand-up routine. Okay, no more announcements. Let's go. As you're about to hear, Miguel Dalmau is one of the most energetic and fun people you could hope to be around. He's insanely quick to drop a punchline that would take me probably about 20 minutes to come up with, and he's a pretty optimistic guy, which is impressive given the fact that he had a pretty turbulent and unstable childhood. Miguel grew up in New York City and essentially raised himself, yet he would go on to do really well in school and have the chops to pursue a degree in medicine. But by the time he was ready to head off to college, his visa had expired, rendering him ineligible for financial aid. At that point, the only way he could make any money was through stand-up comedy. And while not everybody who follows comedy may have heard of Miguel quite yet, they definitely will very soon. But way before his entrance to the stand-up circuit, Miguel's story begins in a town in the Dominican Republic, where he lived until he was 8.
Honestly, the one thing I do remember most vividly about Dominican Republic that I remember was the first time I ever thought to myself, I don't live in a great place, was when I went to school for the first time and I saw just the horribleness that was in school. It was just cylinder blocks.
Well, what was horrible about it?
It was legit. It went from kindergarten to 12th grade, first of all, and it wasn't that big of a school. And it wasn't that big of a school because not that many kids in the town that I lived in went to school. You know what I mean? So we were all there. My principal, quote unquote, spit every time he talked and gave a 30-minute lecture about Jesus every morning and how we needed Jesus in our lives. And if we weren't, Jesus was going to come and kill us. And his shirt was completely unbuttoned, just spitting on people as he talked. I remember one time my teacher was like, oh, I'm going to teach you kids how to count to 100 in English. And I had already come to America visiting, and I kind of loved learning the language of English. I thought it was so exotic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought English was oh, look at these exotic white people speaking this language. Because I've been to New York and back. That's the only exotic place I've been to is New York City. So I kind of up to 100 in English, and the teacher was like, can you stop showing off? We don't appreciate that kind of behavior around here. So it was very I already knew, education-wise, I already knew that something was wrong when I was 6 years old. Yeah, so I remember a lot of it from when I was young.
So do you remember when you found out that you would be moving to America?
I didn't find out I was moving to America because I wasn't allowed to know the plan of moving to America because I would tell my father that we were going to move to America, and that's where the problem lied. You see, this is true, I was technically kidnapped because my mother was in a very abusive relationship. We lived in a country where men rule. Men are supreme. More than, you could, actually, my mom was born during a dictatorship that was like just the most brutal dictatorship in the Dominican Republic. She was born during that regime. And that's just, how it works. Things linger around like that. I mean, we still have Reagan laws that are lingering around. I mean, imagine a dictator that murdered half of the population there, still lingering around. So my mom was in a very abusive relationship and she couldn't get out of it. I mean, my dad was also educated. So he was a dude that knew how to get around, knew how to talk to the law. Slick talker this dude was. So the way I left was literally like my grandmother. My mom was like, so my mom told my grandma like, hey, I'm gonna go to America and get a job, and bring money. And then, you guys can come. And my dad was like, perfect, you go. The kids are gonna be here with me. He was using us as a way to make sure she came back. And then when she was here in America, my grandmother picked us up and said, hey, I'm gonna take the kids over to my house so you can have a weekend to drink. And he's like, fuck yeah. But she secretly took us to the airport and like we left without him knowing. And
that was that.
And there's a lot more to that, but that was essentially how I came here. And I didn't know I was coming here. Like I literally got on a plane. I mean, I've been to New York before when I was younger, but I didn't know that like my grandma had to like steal the passports from like my dad's safe like the night before and do all this crazy stuff when he was like drunk just to get us out of there and stuff. It was very like
it's a heist.
Yeah, it was a complete heist that like these women in my life like put together to get me out of there.
Wow. So was there a moment that you realized you wouldn't be going back?
It was legit when I arrived and I saw my mom like for the first time after a few years because she had been gone out of my life out of a few years. And I was like, where's dad? And she's like, no, we're not gonna go back to see him. And part of me was like, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Like, I was 6 and I was starting to already notice things that weren't right. You know what I mean? The way he acted and the way he just like lied about everything. I started to know at a young age. So I was like, it's one of those few kids who were like, good for you, lady. Like, good for you. I didn't have the words to say, but I was like, good for you. Yeah. So
you felt it.
Yeah, that was my escape story from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then you started to just live a normal New York City life.
Yeah, I was in New York City for like, basically 20 years because I was from 6 to 26. I lived in New York City alone. Like I was just there, grew up there, started comedy there. And then what took me from there to Philly was actually a layover in Indianapolis.
No way.
Yeah, what happened was I was in New York City out of divorce. I was just divorced at that point, and I had met a beautiful girl at a strip club.
Okay.
And
I guess.
Yeah, and I got her pregnant. We're still together. Love you very much, baby. But at that time, I had just gotten divorced, and I had a baby, and I had a second baby on the way. So I was so desperate, and I was just doing comedy. And my paperwork still wasn't in order, so I couldn't really hold down a job because when you don't have paperwork, you're still in limbo and, so it's very scary. So comedy was the only way I was making a living. Like since I was 18, I've been a comedian because I had no other choice. I couldn't go to college because they don't give scholarship or grants or anything to people who are undocumented. None of that happens. So for a long time, I'm good now.
Yeah.
For listeners, I'm good now. But I wasn't at the time. So I had somebody offer me a great deal in Indianapolis. They go, hey man, come out. His name's Steve Hofstetter. Fuck that guy. Because I'm living my life in New York City, and he tells me, hey, come out to Indianapolis. You're going to make $70,000 a year working with me. I'm going to help you go on tour. I know that you're struggling right now. I know your situation. Wink, wink. I want to help you out, I told my girlfriend, she's pregnant. I was like, look, I'm a comic. It's all I have. My paperwork's crazy. Things are really chaotic for me right now. This is great money. Like this is my one chance to really make it in comedy. So I go to Indianapolis. We're there a few months. Steve Hofstetter decides he's not coming anymore. And I go, dude, I have a family. My kids are, I'm going through my own things. And I go, well, I'm going to sue you. And he goes, well, we don't have a contract, so fuck you.
Wow.
And at that point, I'm upset. And luckily, my girlfriend, she's very reasonable and rational. She's like, look, we can, buckle down. And my girlfriend goes, how about if we move to Philly? It's 2 hours outside of New York. Your son, lives in New York City. We're about to have this baby. Let's go over there.
What's your first thought when she says that?
One more shot. Let's give it one more shot at this. Like, if this doesn't work out, I'm just going to quit comedy and I'm going to quit all and screw it. So I packed up a U-Haul, a freaking 2-month-old in the back seat. I'm driving the U-Haul. My girlfriend's driving our car, directing traffic behind me so I can get this giant U-Haul from Indianapolis to Philadelphia.
Right.
We're coming down, when you come up from King of Prussia Mall down that highway, and I just see Philly and for the first time, and I see the lake and those kids rowing because it's summertime and I'm coming through, and I'm just like, it's okay. It doesn't seem so bad here. Like, I don't know, something about the city just made me take a sigh of like a deep breath in over a year. And being here for the last 2 years now has been like this just Philadelphia. I don't know what your experience is, but me being here, like I was so consumed with figuring out how to make it in comedy in New York. You know what I mean? How to be successful, because everybody around me was successful. And if a guy became successful, how do I become successful like him? And then I went to Indianapolis, there was nothing there. And then Philly became this perfect blend of just be yourself, but we also have opportunities out here. Like there was no pressure to me. Like, so I got to do comedy the way I wanted. I got to be who I wanted. And honestly, like this city has really helped me find my voice, just like in life.
Yeah. So would you say that in the New York comedy scene, people aren't being themselves? Is that what you're saying?
So I see it happening like when somebody becomes successful, like I'm talking about like somebody like, example, Michael Che. Like I know Michael Che, like, you know, on that Saturday Night Live and everything. When he became famous, then everybody switched their styles to try and act like Michael Che. Because now the industry is looking for the next Michael Che. In New York, it's like, we're looking for the next this guy, the next that guy, the next that guy. So as an unsure young comedian, as somebody who like, listen, man, undocumented, so I don't even know if I'm Dominican or American, what the hell I am, you know what I mean? Like, I'm half black, half white, technically. Like, I have no idea. And then I'm in this comedy scene where I'm starting to figure out who I am as a person. And I'm like, how about if I act like that guy? How about if I act like that guy? How about if I act like this guy? Would people like me then? Would people want to put me on TV then? Because I'm looking for a job, you know what I mean? I'm trying to survive in this. So being in New York made it very impossible for me to be myself because people around me were finding such success.
Being other people.
Yeah, or, you know, in a way imitating, and you don't figure out who you are. And that's a danger that a lot of people who start comedy in New York fall into, that, you know, there's so much success, so many people around you, you don't know who you are. Smaller markets allow you to grow with people and grow with friends and sort of branch off, and then you can kind of find your voice and then go to New York already kind of a little bit established of who you are.
So let's back up a little bit. Mm-hmm. How did you even get into comedy in the first place?
Legit, I couldn't go to college. I was in high school crushing. Like I was doing pretty well. Like I wanted to be a doctor. You know, I was, there's this thing in New York City called Health Occupation Students of America. I won like their presidency. I was going to get a scholarship to St. John University. And then actually, this is what happens to a lot of people who are undocumented, that you don't understand. You fall in and out of different statuses throughout years. Things like that happen to you all the time. So at that point, I was out of status. I have no working papers, nothing. And when you're like that.
So yeah, out of status means that you don't have supporting documentation that you're legally there. Is that
yes,
what that means?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I came to this country, you know, legally because, you know, my father was beating my mother. So we came here with a visa. But after 3 years, that expired and my mom tried to get asylum. And those laws are actually pretty hard to get because even if you're being beat, they're very hard. Trump's already taken away things that are so hard. It was already hard back in the 90s when my mom tried to come here. So that's why we fell in and out of statuses a lot. You know,
so at this point,
18 years old, I want to go to college. I have like some money coming my way to go to St. John's University to try and do something in medicine. I really am interested in medicine.
You have the drive, you have the success.
Nobody's telling me to do this. This is just me figuring out for myself. My parents weren't around much either. That's another thing. Like they weren't around, so I'm guiding myself. And I'm like, you know what? I'm actually pretty smart. I go to a shitty school, but I learned that in this shitty school, if you actually achieve, they look at you because they're like, oh, look at this kid, is not a gangster. Like he's actually smart. I knew that. I knew in these schools, so I busted my ass. So then that's what happened when I try to go to get my scholarship and try to get grants and try to get whatever. They're like, you have no status, dude. You can't get anything. So then at that point, I was miserable working at Toys R Us because I got in that job when I did have status. But then if I left, I couldn't get another job.
You couldn't even come back.
I couldn't come back. You know what I mean? So then I had a girlfriend at the time and I'm telling her my situation and I'm making her laugh because I'm like, that's stupid. Like I got drive and there's white people who have no drive. Like that's what I'm making her laugh. And she's like, oh, you're so funny. You should be like a comedian. And I go, I should, right? And she goes like, yeah, you know, I always thought you were very funny. Like, I'm not just saying that my friends think you're very funny, not obnoxious funny. Like, and I was like, screw it. And I Googled funny jobs that night. And on my own, with a buddy of mine, I went to an open mic that night and I told a few stories from my life, a couple of little jokes, and I really made the audience laugh. And I looked at myself and I was like, 8 years. Give this 8 years. All my friends are going to college. You know what I mean? Or selling drugs. And I don't want to do either. I don't want to do the one that they're doing. I want to do something like 8 years. Do 8 years. And what's funny is like doing comedy, I didn't realize this. They pay you cash a lot. So I was like, cha-ching, what a great way to me to get paid cash. So I used that money to become a nursing assistant. So I used my comedy money to...
A nursing assistant.
A nursing assistant, yeah.
Wow.
And to put in paperwork to get work permit and all that stuff. And then I got married and I got my green card through all that. But for a long time, like my comedy was helping me keep my status and keep everything alive. So literally comedy saved my life.
Wow. So at what point did you decide to pursue comedy full time?
It was then, it was when Steve Hofstetter called me. You know what I mean? Because at that point, things were still shaky. And I was like, well, I don't want to lose this job. And then I'm out on the streets again. Like, my status kept making it so unsure of what my job would ever be. You know what I mean?
Right. You started doing stand-up just kind of on the suggestion of your girlfriend. But I feel like a lot of people say, I should do stand-up. I'm funny. But they probably don't realize how much work it takes, how much writing, how much honing it takes. How did you learn how to do that?
Well, okay, let's not say that she just said, go be a comedian and stuff. Like, I knew that I was funny. I just didn't know you could do it for a living until she said it. Like, honestly, like in 8th grade, I used to have a calendar that I would put an X whenever I would make the entire class laugh. I had a streak of 3 weeks.
What?
I'm telling you, dude, I'm not even lying to you. One time, a teacher just was laughing so hard. She went, can I continue? And I went, yeah. Like, I let her go, yeah. Of course you can. I say it's cool. The one time I ever found out, like, I actually noticed I was funny was, I was asking a question during an SAT prep course about logarithms, right? And I asked a serious question from the heart, right? And then I said something, and the entire class laughed and applauded. And I looked at my friend. I'll never forget my friend Nicole. I'll still give her props for this. I go, why is everybody laughing? And they go, you don't get it. You just know how to say things funny. And I go, all right, thank you. That helped me a lot because I was wondering why people always laugh at me because I know how to say things funny. Funny has always been the way I got out of getting my ass beat. It's been my survival tactic for everything, man. When I was on a plane, knowing that I was leaving my country at that point, I was just laughing it up. You know what I mean? When I was, I wasn't raised by anybody, really. Like, people, I might have come to this country, but I was really abandoned in this country. Really, my parents didn't raise me. I was moved around from aunt to uncle, whoever could take me in. You know what I mean? So laughter was always what I had with me. So when a girl said, you should be a comedian, it became, yeah, that makes sense. And I don't know what became of me where I was like, mind you, by the way, let me tell you this, for the first 8 years, I did it wrong. For the first 8 years, I went in with the hip hop mentality. I thought I was going to be Jay-Z. Okay. You know what I mean? I thought I was going to, Jay-Z brags about never writing. He's like, never all right. But if I, so I thought comedy was the same way. I thought you never wrote. I honestly, for the first 6 years, didn't have an act. I would just go up there, riff. People would laugh. Sometimes I don't know why they would laugh. I would just start talking, and then I had a recorder, and then I would go back and just make notes of what they did laugh at. And then I would take those laughing moments and create fake stories around those moments that would help me get to that laugh quicker. So that's how I started doing it. And that's my first, like, no, that's called writing. And I'm like, oh, that's writing. I didn't know that's what it was. But by the way, I did that just as, at first, I didn't have an idea for the first 8 years of what I would talk about on stage. Then it became like, I would get in front of the computer after 8 years, after somebody was like, hey, you're funny, but you talk too much. Do you know what I mean? You need to know how to cut your words. And I was like, what does that mean? Because it's called editing. Since I didn't get to go to school, I didn't waste all that money on, all these things that I was never going to use. So what I have done in the last 3 years, whenever I see like, oh, my grammar's not really good, or, well, I don't care. I just look up, I look up books on to library about grammar, and I've learned that. Or when I wanted to learn how to really write for late night, I took out a bunch of books of late night writers, and I learned how to put a packet together. So, I just, in the last 3 years of when I've really learned how to not rely on other people anymore, because that was my problem. When I moved out to Indianapolis, I wanted Steve to do the work for me. I wanted Steve to be the one to make me famous. I wanted Steve to be the one to bring me my money in. Instead of realizing that's not how it's going to happen, man. I need to write my own words and bring my own comedy to paper and submit those and hopefully get a job one day. You know what I mean? I need to do it for myself. So that's so I've learned everything up to this point, to literally go into a library.
So it's been, you said 3 years now in Philly.
2 going on 3.
Going on 3.
Yeah.
Is there anything about the Philly comic scene that has particularly surprised you?
Yeah, I didn't know they would be so nice. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, but not nice in a bad way, man. Like, I've never felt so brought into a community in my life. Like, not family, not honestly, the second I arrived was every comic. By the way, I don't know if you know any of the comedy scene, but there's always a comedian, Shane Gillis, who gives me a lot of shit because when I first got here, I didn't tell anybody I had credits. Comedians, their whole thing is, got to get these credits. Like, I've been on TV. Like, I've done stuff on, I'll say a few things, I've done commercials on TV. I've been to Gotham Comedy Live on Access TV. I've done 50 Central on BET. I've done those things, right? But when I came back to Philly, I said, that doesn't matter. Like, nobody's going to know anything about me. You know what I mean? Nobody's not going to know anything. All I want people to tell me is if I'm funny or not. I don't care about the credits. And that's what happened. Like, I didn't tell anybody. So at the open mics, you know, I would get a few chuckles and I started writing brand new jokes. You know, and once I started seeing that people were really responding to me, I started getting on shows very quickly. And it wasn't because I was on TV, it's because the people in Philly were actually watching and paying attention and be like, hey, this kid's good. We should give him stage time because he's good. We shouldn't give him stage time in New York because he's on Saturday Night Live. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things in New York where all you needed to do is have a credit and anybody will throw you up. In Philadelphia, it became, you're funny, so you're going to go up. And it was very easy to be able to find my funny because the funnier I became, the more I got up. So, and then actually a comic, Shane Gillis, a year later was like, came up to me, was like, I Googled you. You've been on TV and stuff. And I go, yeah. I was like, how come you never told anybody? Like, the clubs would have been working. I was like, no, I want to get into clubs because the clubs thinks I'm funny. I want to get these things because they think I'm funny, not because I have a credit from something I did 2 years ago. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So it became, I really feel like I've worked my way. I'm still working my way up. But I started from zero in Philly, and I like that.
Yeah. So where do you think it's going to go from here? Do you think you're going to stay in Philly for a long time?
I want to be in Philly as long as Philly will have me, man. I really want to buy a home here. I want to put my roots here. I want to open up a comedy club here. And I really do hope that more industry starts moving down this way. Like, New York is getting way too expensive. You know what I mean? I got to say is, if any New York comic or anybody in New York is following their dreams, some of you will make it. Most of you are just going to be funny waiters for all your life because you're not getting out enough to follow your dreams because you have to fucking work so hard just to pay your bills. In Philly, it gives you that beauty of it's not too expensive,
right?
So I can have a job and still follow my dreams. And that's why I love being here. I want to be here and just continue to follow my dreams from here because it's great. I just need more TV here or more industry.
So do you have any advice for an aspiring comedian who isn't, I guess, in New York City? Like, how would they get started?
Yeah, just start your own show. Legit. Like, this is the world of DIY. So like, do it yourself. DIY, man. I mean, look at us, the way we're doing a podcast right now with such, well, your equipment's pretty cool. My equipment's very basic, but I'm saying you could do a podcast with the most basic equipment, you know, get your friends to be on your podcast, do a movie podcast or whatever, where you watch something. There's ways to, I think I was hungry for other people to do the work for me. Like I said, like I follow Steve. You have to do it for yourself, man. You have to write every day. You cannot let it pass. You got to write every day. You got to send out emails every day to shows you want to be on and bother people. Like if you want to do this, like you have to take it like it's a job. You know what I mean? You have to take it very seriously.
So let's talk about the podcast. Mm-hmm. You started a podcast about a year ago.
Yeah.
It's called
American Immigrant.
American Immigrant.
Yeah.
What was the idea behind that? Why did you do that?
I honestly just thought to myself, like, I want to do like WTF International. Mark Maron has a podcast, WTF, right? Okay. And it's all about comedians and people he has on. And he has a lot of comedians on. And I've noticed that for the first 5 years, it was nothing but white comedians. You know what I mean? You know, I love a lot of white comedians. Like, I love Will Arnett, I love Will Ferrell, I love all the Wills and all the Jimmys. But, you know what I mean?
They really are all
Will and Jimmys, man. They're all Will and Jimmys. But then I was like, and then he's like, and Mark Maron one episode goes, you know, if there's more people of color who want to come on, you know, just contact me. And I go, where are you that you don't see them? Because I see them every day. You know what I mean? You know, so they're everywhere to me. So I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to do WTF International. So what I was going to do is just, you know, interview comedians from other countries just like me who are here following their dreams. But then it kind of evolved into this thing of identity. It became like almost this cultural identity podcast because a lot of people are just confused as I am. I didn't know like that they were, you know, because I might be born Dominican Republic, but honestly, like Spanish culture is okay to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I like spicy food, but not that much. Yeah. You know what I mean? I love Mel Brooks movie. Like, I am seriously an old Jew at heart, just with a little bit of swag. Do you know what I mean? So that's why, like, it's just, I don't know. It's just, so the podcast became more of a culture identity kind of thing. And it's become very interesting of people, coming here and trying to figure out how do they keep their culture and then mix it with American culture, you know, and what do you keep? What do you give up? And it's very interesting to hear people like be very confused. And I always have white people come up to me and go, can I do your podcast? And I always go, you tell me if you can do my podcast, because it's about immigration. It's how you relate to it. We're all immigrants in this country,
right? Everyone.
But some people decide that they're not anymore. So sometimes I have white people go like, my grandfather's from Poland and I love him and I have some pictures of him and stuff, like, then come on. And it becomes, they look up more Polish things and they be like, yeah, I'm only disconnected this by 2 generations. Why am I not even thinking about this? You know, so it's very interesting what people come on to talk about.
Yeah. So you're, you know, informing people not only how they're related to other folks who are immigrants, but how they themselves are also immigrants.
Yeah, it's been very eye-opening.
Are there any differences between Miguel behind the podcast mic versus Miguel behind the stand-up mic?
I'm trying to blend them together a lot more.
What were the differences that you saw at first that you're trying to blend together?
I try to be more jokey on the podcast, like on American Immigrant. I try to make it more like, it's a comedy podcast, guys. We're going to do a couple jokes in between. It's going to be great. But, and then I'm also starting to realize that a lot of the stand-up that I do is emotional. You know, I talk about like my journey as an immigrant and stuff like that. And on this, I was trying to throw out a lot of facts because I was trying to like learn more and try to seem more educated in this, you know? When I realized like my thing is I am kind of just like a goofy dude walking through life in a way, you know what I mean? And yeah, I'm like, oh, this is what it is. It's silly. So the podcast has become a little bit more of me not taking it so seriously, you know?
So let's talk more about Philly. I mean, there's a couple questions that I ask all my guests just to get different perspectives. And I think yours is unique in two ways. One, because I haven't talked to anybody in the comedy scene yet. And two, because you're still relatively fresh to Philadelphia. Some people, you know, have been here for a long time. So from what you've seen so far, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing Philadelphia today?
Income inequality. I mean, I hate to just go straight there, but I drive for Lyft, you know, and I drive a white person from, you know, Center City to Fishtown, you know, and in a nice neighborhood, and then a block over, I see 40 crackheads just falling asleep on the street. And I go, how is this? I mean, I lived in New York and it's not even like this. How does a city go from one block, heroin needles and everything on the floor, to the next block, one of the most beautiful homes and everything? How do you do that? Like, what happened here? You know what I mean? So income inequality is one thing. Schools, when I drive to the ghetto, I mean, it's not just political talk. Those schools look terrible. And as a kid who came from a school like that, you know what I mean? I went to, East High School, Northeast High School. I went there to interview some of the students there. And I'm like, how are you still having the same kind of crappy education and horrible things happening in school that I had in 2000? You know what I mean? Like, there was no change. You know what I mean? Those were all those people of color that I grew up with, just still scared about the same thing. Their parents getting deported or being shot after school, walking home the wrong way. And I'm like, what? Why is this still happening? You know what I mean? There's possibility for things to change. I mean, I'm more optimistic. I'm like, why doesn't the city like Philadelphia invest so much money on renewable energy? Put everybody learn how to use solar panels, put them on people's homes, lower rent. I mean, lower light bills for people. Like, there's so many easy ways to just save people money that will also be good for the environment, but they don't do it for the inner cities first.
Yeah.
You know?
What's crazy is almost every single person that I've interviewed says that.
And that's easy because you see it. It's so easy to see. In Philly, it is in your face. I mean, I've lived in Chicago for a bit, New York City, Indianapolis. It takes a minute to see it. Philly jumps from block to block in ways that I'm like, what is happening? And the money's being very centralized. The money's only moving to certain neighborhoods. You see that.
So on the flip side, what's the most encouraging thing you see about Philadelphia?
I like to see the fact that everybody that I've talked to just seems passionate like this, honestly. Like, I don't know, maybe it was just because of the climate of what's going on, but I honestly can have a lot deeper conversations with people in Philadelphia. Do you know what I mean? Like, I honestly, like, this income inequality conversation I've been able to have with people. I've been able to seriously, like, I don't know, people in Philly, and I'll tell you this, even in my comedy, they're very receptive to different ideas. And that's the one thing I think Philadelphia has, that you just have that. I mean, this is where the country was founded. This is where it started. I think Philadelphia still has that, like, let's debate.
Yeah.
Let's debate this shit. This is where debate was fucking founded.
That's
Let's
right.
do that shit.
Yeah.
I think Philadelphia, I think New York is too much. We're liberal. And LA's like, we're liberal. And, you know, the Midwest is red. Philly's like, we don't know what we are, man. This is where it all started and all this shit. We're still trying to figure it out, you know? I think Philly still has that possibility of merging things. But I think, like, I don't know, man. I think we need to work on the income first. But I think there's more hope. I see more hope in Philly of blending the two than I do in any other city.
If you could send a text message to every Philadelphian, so you get one message that every Philadelphian would receive, what would you say?
Vote your conscience. Vote their conscience on, I believe it's November 8th. I'm going to look that up because everyone sent a text. I'm going to Google that date. But yeah, just vote in the midterms. That's what I would tell Philadelphia, because I think we all feel something's wrong. We all want to do something, but like, how do I do it? I'm telling you, you got to vote. You can't sit out anymore. This whole sitting out thing, no. Or which one's more evil than the other. You really got to look at both of them and be like, yeah, this one's definitely going to be more evil than that one. I understand how politics work. You know what I mean? Just vote, please.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If you could send a message to yourself in the past at any moment, other than just words of encouragement, would you? And if so, what would you say?
I would honestly tell myself, don't worry, somebody's going to love you eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, man. And I'm kind of teary-eyed a little bit, but I'm like, yeah, I would tell young me. Like, sometimes I think about that, like giving my young self a hug, because I hated myself for a long time, you know? And I love just thinking about like me as a youth, just being like, dude, this isn't your fault, man. Nobody's teaching you right from wrong. You're just learning as you go along. You're learning from your boys in the streets or the people that sell drugs they think are cool. You're not learning from the right people. This isn't your fault. So I really tell myself, somebody's going to love you eventually the right way.
Sounds like you found it, though.
Oh, yeah. Her and my kids, man. It's all for them. Honestly, like right before I got this, I got a message from, I submitted for NACA, the college thing, and I didn't get it. And I called her crying. She's like, why are you crying? Because I wanted to send you to college. She wants to go back to school because we're both like struggling right now. And if I had NACA, I was going to send her to school so she wants to become a chef. She was a chef for a while, but she doesn't have a culinary license. So she wants to go to school, and we're taking turns. We're going to take turns. She's going to go to school to better herself, and I'm going to go to school. We agreed on this. But this NACA thing was what I was going to use that money to send her to school. And she's like, don't worry. And I was like, no, but I wanted this for us, damn it. I wanted this for you. But I found someone.
That's
legit,
cool, man. Yeah. Well, dude, I'm pumped to see. I don't know. I was watching some of your videos.
Yeah,
and,
you like it?
dude,
NACA was wrong, right? Fuck NACA.
Yeah.
Honestly, and by the way, I hate when I make excuses like this, but like I know who the people who watch these videos, not who they are specifically, but it's a lot of college students, and a lot of my comedy is about being illegal and being an immigrant and being undocumented. College campuses, I'm not safe on college campuses. Vice did a whole thing on colleges where they were talking about how they actually interviewed people who pick comedians to come to the colleges. And those people were saying, I don't book anybody slightly controversial because the students need to be kept safe. And I'm like, I'm sorry I'm not safe, that I'm talking about how this country's fucked over immigrants for a long time, but I talk about it funny though. But they don't want to hear that, I make you laugh about it though. Oh, I make you laugh though. You'll be like, oh God, I am so wrong, but it's so funny that I'm wrong. Like, it's so funny that I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. Oh man. Well, hey, I mean, I was digging it.
I've always been great at that, man. I've always been able to make my enemy laugh. Oh, anybody, dude! Every time I've been pulled over by the cops or something like that, I just make them laugh, and they're just like, "Yep, this guy's great." Yeah, I just know how to make you laugh, man.
Folks want to find you online, want to see your stuff. Where can they go?
Yeah, you can find me on. Actually, I've made it very easy: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Miguel Dalmau. If you go on Facebook or anything, honestly, if you Google Miguel Comedy, I'm very proud. I became the #1 more. So yeah, just Miguel Comedy, and I come right up. I'm right up
that
top.
SEO going.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was wondering, what's the least amount of words you have to type in to find me? Yeah, Miguel Comedy. That's the easiest way to find me. You also see my real name and everything, but you also see Miguel Comedy Girlfriend because I talk about her so much. Yeah.
You can also head to podphillywho.com/Dalmau. That's DALMAU for more on Miguel. Very special thanks to Miguel for being a guest on the show today, and special thanks to Alex Yang. Podcast art by Lauren Carhart, music by Lee Rosevere. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at PodPhillyWho. Let us know if you've got any ideas or feedback. For Philly Who, my name is Kevin Schmidlin. Thanks so much for tuning in. And stay tuned now for a clip of Miguel's stand-up.
I'm doing great. I recently became a U.S. resident. Thank you. I was born in the Dominican Republic. I came here when I was 7 years old. So I'm just a resident now. So with everything going on, people have asked me if I'm afraid about being deported. And I know I should be, but the problem is that I lived here for so long that I've developed too much American arrogance to be afraid. Like every time I think about getting deported, I'm like, all right, sure, I have a high school diploma. But what's that, like a master's degree in the third world? When I get back there, I'll just be president, right? That seems... I am really so arrogant that I think I'm gonna go back to the Dominican Republic and be like, hey everybody, I'm back. I got a 2.4 high school GPA and I've seen Scandal, so I'm ready to run this. I mean, have you guys even seen the last season? No? I'm overqualified, but whatever. That's how I'll roll. I know this country has a lot of issues, but you gotta realize, I like living here. All right? I'm from the slums. I didn't flush my first toilet till I was 7 years old. You appreciate little things. Like for me, whenever the president says something crazy, I'm just like, what the flush? It's not all that. What happened to me was I was actually undocumented for over 20 years. What happened was my mom flew me here, and then we overstayed our visa, which is actually a lot of people become illegal. But a lot of Americans don't know that, because whenever somebody found out I was undocumented, the first question would be, oh my God, how'd you get here? Because they want to hear an awesome escape story, like, how did I get here? I swam 300 miles. I punched 3 sharks. But they get very disappointed. I'm like, how did I get here? American Airlines. I watched Aaron Brockovich my whole way to freedom. Sorry. I was undocumented for over 20 years. When you grow up like that, being deported is a real fear. But the problem around my house was that my mom used that like it was the boogeyman just to get me to do things all the time. Isn't that horrible to use ice against your own baby? She do it all the time too. Like I'd be leaving the house, she'd be like, hey, pick a sweater. I'm like, oh, I don't need a sweater. She's like, oh, you don't need a sweater? You know what's gonna happen? It's gonna start raining. Okay, you're gonna get caught in the rain. You're gonna start being sick. You're gonna cough, you're gonna faint. They're gonna call 911. They're gonna take you to the hospital. They're gonna ask you for your social security number. You don't have one. You're gonna get deported. Fine, I'll get a sweater. Jesus. Wow, bring it down a notch, lady. Which sweater should I take? Which one's gonna get me less deported? Just thinking of less deported. So he's gonna be driving like, that kid looks comfortable. I don't know. That's how my mom was. I was poor growing up, but God bless my mother, man. She never let me know we were poor. She just let me think she was racist. And here's why. Because every time I wanted to sign up for something, my mom never had the heart to tell me she couldn't afford it. So what she would do is, she would come up with a racist excuse as to why I couldn't do it. Because that way, she's not letting me down, but society is letting her baby down. Isn't that smart? She'll do it all the time. So my mom's like, Mom, can I play basketball? She's like, no, sorry, mijo. You're not black enough. Yeah, you see Michael Jordan, he real black, so he real good. All right, can I do karate? No, you're not Chinese. I've seen your passport, trust me, you're not even 5% Chinese. You even know what that means? No. I'm like, all right, can I play baseball? She's like, no, why do you want to be like every other Dominican? Why don't you go be yourself? And I gotta be honest with you, that's pretty smart. You know what I mean? Because now that I'm a parent, I don't have money, and I can't afford things, and I don't want to take responsibility for this either. So I'm just gonna have to do what my mom does, but I'm gonna have to implement her tactics for 2018, for the new world. Like my son comes up to me and he's like, Dad, can I play football? I have to be like, there you go, identifying as a boy again. Why don't you go find your own gender identity, okay? I'm doing all right in this country. I have a girlfriend. And I don't mean to brag, but my girlfriend is white, because keep the enemies close. My girlfriend's white, but being with her, I've noticed is that she doesn't have white privilege, because 80% of her body is covered in tattoos and she has gauges. And being with her, I've noticed that there are 2 things conservatives don't trust, and that's people of color and white people who ruin the original hardware. Anytime her and I walk into a department store and we split up, for these employees, a real Sophie's choice on who to follow. I always see them so confused. They're always like, the immigrant or the opioid epidemic? I don't know who to go with right now. The media tells me they're both an issue. My girlfriend has a lot of tattoos, but luckily she doesn't have any tattoos on her face, and I like that. Because I'm terrified of white people who have tattoos on their face. Because every time I see that, that tells me that person is on meth. Right? Because that is 100% a meth decision, right? Like no sober, sane white person will calmly walk into a tattoo parlor and go, hi, shopkeep, how are ya? Listen, sir, do you know that thing where I don't get profiled or the cops don't follow me around or I can get a job wherever I want? Yeah? Well, screw all that! And just put a serpent eating an egg on my face! That's ridiculous. Yeah, my girlfriend is bad, man. Other than being covered in tattoos, right? She also knows how to hunt, plays basketball, and knows how to rebuild cars. Yeah, so while some guys might grow up and end up with someone who's like their mother, I ended up with someone who's like the father I've never had. Yeah, so recently she told me I changed the oil in our car, and playfully she tousled my hair. And she's like, I'm proud of you, champ. I cried for 25 minutes.